for that. Welcome on set, Lynda Tilly, our co-host of this show and of this production. Lynda is our right hand for this production. I am already there. We have been together in the production of this great show. We had a brief break. We are back. We are back in style.
Hello.
Welcome, Lynda.
Hi, can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you. I do see you.
It's good to see you both.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm full screen. And good to see you, Precious, as well. Welcome to the show tonight. Thanks, Kato. I know we've had a few weeks break, and it's good to have everyone back again. Thank you all for joining us. I know that a lot of you watch after the show has aired. I'm really excited tonight to have Precious Ebenezer on board with us. Precious is a political and Kemetic scientist and author from Nigeria who has studied a lot and has knowledge of the history of the Black African race and our connection especially to Egypt, a lot of which has been distorted and omitted from our history books over time. And as a writer, I know he's one of many who is determined to write Africa back into history and for the Black race and for Africa as a continent to rise up to its rightful place in the world today, and for all our African people on this continent to realize what an amazing civilization and advanced people they once were, and to just be proud of that fact. And I think it's wonderful that Precious is spreading so much awareness. He has a huge following on social media. He's published his first book this year, The Untold History of Black Race and the Fall of African Civilization. It is a fascinating book and insights into all that has been discovered over time, which Precious has brought together. He has a Facebook page as well, which I encourage you all to go onto. It has the most incredible information on there. Every single post is a really informative post, backed up with facts. And the great thing with him is that he is always available to answer any questions that people have. Queries about things they don't understand, he always gives such precise answers with all his facts backed up. And he has a huge following of people from all over the world who are becoming interested in hearing about who we truly are as African people. I think all of us have the same issue with the fact that religion has been used as a tool of oppression on this continent from the days of slavery and the days of colonization, where our traditional and cultural African beliefs were taken away from us and replaced with religion. And instead of worshipping and appreciating and putting our faith in each other as people, we were given this fake God that we were then taught to put our faith and belief in. And we are our own gods, we are our own creators, and we are the masters of our own destiny. There's no supernatural being that created by the Catholic, most Christian church and the Islamic religion that is going to come and save us. As I've always said, only we as African people can save each other and save our continent. And I think one of the most important things is getting to the bottom of our true history. And I think what upsets me the most is that I see people these days, they are so willing and able to readily accept things that they hear on social media or they see on TV. But yet when you try and teach them fascinating scientific facts and things, as Precious does with us, they dispute it straight away. But yet they're prepared to listen to some nonsense about the latest TikTok challenge or the latest fad or craze or supposed thing that is happening. They believe without question. Whereas we have someone like Precious who is giving us fascinating facts and information, and they dispute that. But they will quite happily go to church on a Sunday and accept whatever their pastor says, let's pray for rain or whatever. So we really need to just stop acting so stupid as African people, because we are certainly not. And as you can see by Precious and what he'll tell us about tonight, is that the Black African race was the most advanced, most civilized race which discovered the rest of the continent, of the world, and also civilized the white population in particular. and taught so many of what the West takes credit for today, it actually all originates from the Black African people. And what I'm really excited as well, that Precious is going to talk to us about today, is about starting from the beginning with mitochondrial Eve, which is the fact that every single one of us has Black genetics in us, that we all come from one Black mother from many, many years ago. It's the maternal DNA, which is passed down through the family line, and that is unchanged, relatively unchanged over time. The male DNA does change slightly, but we all carry, to this day, the genetic traits of our first female mother, who was the Black African woman. And I think that once the world starts understanding that, this is proven with scientific facts. It's irrefutable evidence. And then there are also many things which Precious will talk to us about tonight, about how physical evidence has been found of this, and in writings and in teachings and in things over the years with his proof. And I think that this whole issue that we have in the world today with race can so easily can fall away if everyone just accepts the fact that we are all one people and we are all from the same mother. And for us as Africans, Mother Africa is I believe, like a symbol of our mother. You've just written a book recently, Kato, about Mother Africa, Mama Africa. We are all connected all over the world, and especially as African people. So that's very exciting, and I'm really happy to have Precious here tonight, and to have someone from Nigeria. Nigeria is such an important country. I am an advocate. I'm always going out preaching about Nigeria. It has such a bad image in the world, and when you learn about how important Nigeria is in our history as African people and how important the Nigerian people are, you'll realize why this false image of Nigerians has been propagated out there. They are only judged on the worst people in their country and not the best. And if you take a look, you'll see how we have Nigerians leading in scientific fields and all medicine fields all over the world. So I'm very, very happy to have Precious on the show tonight. It's great to have you. And I think, Precious, maybe you can just start by explaining to us about our Black mother that we all share.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to start by thanking the hosts, you two, for putting all resources to make sure this thing comes into reality. I think it's a means to share our history to the world, to understand that our history never started from slave trade or colonialism, that there was a history before slave trade and colonialism. Talking about the Black woman, since every time, religion has made people believe that the first people on earth were Adam and Eve, and they have light skin, especially when they present it on movies, cartoons, and the rest. This is a process of brainwashing humanity, especially other races that are not light skinned, to believe that the first human beings on earth were light skinned, which from all archaeological and anthropological evidence, it never shows so. So they should be acting movies, they should be showing us cartoons, entertainment based on the archaeological and historical facts. The Black woman was the first human being on earth. And in 1974, archaeological and anthropological research have already recorded it that she is the first human being on earth. Now, when I say a Black woman, I'm not talking about one. Humanity has been existing for millions of years. Okay? And the last point of human evolution, if I want to go to the point of scientific analysis, based on the Homo sapiens sapiens, okay, and the Homo sapiens sapiens at that last stage was very black. It was very, very black, and these were African women. And one thing we should understand is that the Black woman can give birth to any color of child, but the white woman cannot give birth to a black child except she has sex with a Black man, because the Black woman has the original DNA. She has the original genes. Okay. Now, according to Ivan van Satima, okay, in his book Black Women in Antiquity, he stated it by saying that the rate of sun in Africa was so hot that African women had to migrate with their albino children, what we call albino. Okay, they had to migrate because the albino children lack the melanin pigment that will protect them from the brutality of the sun. That's why you see black people can stay under the sun very long, but light-skinned people cannot stay under the sun very long because they lack one pigment called the melanin. And the melanin is only found in black people. That is why they can stay under the sun very long. So the black woman, seeing that her children were dying easily, their albino children, she had to migrate out of Africa. Now, when she migrated out of Africa, the first place that she settled was Europe, and this period was around 55,000 years ago, according to Van Satima. Around 55,000 years ago, the Africans that migrated from Africa entered Europe, and they were caught by the ice. Now, when they entered Europe, being caught by the ice, because then Europe was so cold. When I say cold, it's not like this cold we see in Europe today. It was called the Ice Age. Okay. Now, when these black Africans entered Europe, they were caught by the ice. Now, they had to go into what we call adaptation, the process of adaptation. Now, adaptation is where they had to stay there, survive in that cold, survive in the ice for thousands of years, starting from around 55,000 years ago. Now, as they stayed in the ice for hundreds and thousands of years, they started facing what we call pigmentation. There was changes in skin color. People who had thick lips started having thin lips. People who had broad nose started having thin nose, just like that. So there was changes in complexion. There was growth in long hair. These are archaeologically verified if you research it. Now, it was not all blacks that went to Europe that had light skin that were affected by the ice. That was why around 55 BCE, when Julius Caesar invaded Britain, according to Van Satima, he said that Julius Caesar discovered that there were black people native to Britain. There were black people native to Britain. Now, this was before they came to Africa. This was before they came to Africa. So you see, the black woman has done so much in antiquity. We worship black women. There was a time the world worshipped black women. Black women are treated like goddess. Okay, the first black woman that was worshipped as a god, her name was Het Heru, or goddess Hathor. She is always symbolized with a cow face. Okay, she was worshipped first by the Jews when they left Egypt. Now remember, the Jews were not slaves in Egypt. They came as students. According to John Henry Clark, he said that around 1700 BC, that is 1700 BC, the Hebrews find themselves in Africa, precisely Egypt, Kemet to be precise. Now, when they came to Africa, they did not come to Africa as slaves. When they came, all the pyramids, they have already been built. The Sphinx have already been built. Everything about our civilization have already been recorded. Imhotep has already practiced medicine and died. Okay, so when they came, they saw our civilization. They saw the way Africa was, so they had to start acquiring knowledge from black Africans. Now, this was around 1700 BCE. Now, around 700 BCE, they concluded their education in Kemet. Now, when they were leaving Africa, this was where they started writing their Old Testament, starting with the book of Exodus. So we should always know that the first book that was written by the Jews was not the book of Genesis. It was the book of Exodus. Now, the book of Exodus is nothing else but a propaganda against black people, because there was no Jew, there was no Hebrew that was enslaved in Egypt. So the issue of Moses, the issue of Abraham, the issue of all these people, there is no historical record to prove that they ever existed. Because we have found African monuments, we have found the bones, okay, the skeleton of Africans who existed before Abraham and Moses. Like Ramesses II in 1881, they discovered his remains. Everything about Ramesses II, he existed before the time the Jews say that Moses existed. So let me go back to the black woman. So when the Jews were leaving Africa, they left with the worship of this black woman named Goddess Hathor. In their Old Testament, they called her the golden calf, if you can remember. They called her the golden calf. Now, when the Greeks came to Africa, they also stole this woman. They called her Aphrodite. When the Romans they came, they called her Venus. Okay. Now, when the Hindus they came, they called her the sacred cow. These are the ways they stole our African goddess. Another woman that they worshipped was Isis, the black mother of God. When the Europeans came to Africa around 500 BC, that was the period they came to Africa. The first Europeans to come to Africa to study, the first Europeans to come to Africa to study in Africa were the Greeks. Now, when they came to Africa, they saw that Africans have already established their civilization. Africans were not lacking anything. So what did they do? They also came to learn. In the process of learning, they copied the worship of this black woman, Isis, took her to Europe and worshipped her as the Black Madonna and Child. This was around 500 BCE. They worshipped her as the Black Madonna and Child. Her name is Isis, the woman that you will see giving breast to her son, Heru or Horus. Okay? Yes. Now, this story of this woman existed 5,000 years before the story of Mary and Jesus. And this is the kind of thing they are supposed to be teaching our African children, but they will not teach them. They would like to teach them about the white supremacist education, that there is a woman, a Jewish or a Hebrew woman named Mary, and she gave birth as a virgin, that this story happened 2,000 years ago. But there's a story of a black woman that happened 5,000 years ago before this Mary and Jesus. So when the Europeans came to Africa, precisely the Greeks, they copied the worship of this woman and called her the Black Madonna and Child. Guess what? They worshipped this woman from 500 BC. They built temple for her. Even in Rome, they built temple for her and they worshipped her. European women, in order to worship this woman in purity, European women started abstaining from sex. They stopped giving sex to their husband. This was the genesis of the burning down of the temple of Isis in Europe. So these European men revolted against Isis, the temple. They started burning down a temple. This was around 591 AD, during the time of Pope Gregory the Great. Although there's nothing great about that pope. Anyways, that one is a story for another day. This was Pope Gregory the Great. He opened his mouth to say that women are the reason why this world is full of evil. He said that it was because of the sin of Eve. That is why this world is like this. This is a propaganda against the feminine gender. And religion is promoting a patriarchy, thereby telling us that the first worship is a man named Jehovah. Meanwhile, the first worship is a black woman named Isis, which the Europeans, they know too well that she's the black mother of God. Now, European men now protested in Europe, started burning down her temple. This was how the Black Madonna and Child worship ended in Europe. So the black woman has done so much in history. What about Queen Hatshepsut? Queen Hatshepsut, the first female pharaoh of Egypt to call herself a pharaoh. She was a warrior, a very brave woman. Do they teach about that woman? They don't teach about her. What about Queen Tai or Queen T? Do they teach about it as in a woman named Queen T, mother of Akhenaten the Great, grandmother of Tutankhamun? Did they teach about this woman? But they always want to tell us about Julius Caesar. They always want to tell us about Leonardo da Vinci. They always want to tell us about Queen Elizabeth I, Queen Elizabeth II. What about people like Nefertiti? What about people like Queen T? These are our African ancestors. They are supposed to be teaching us in our history schools, but they will not. There was one day I met some youths in a particular school. I asked them, have you ever heard of Imhotep? Have you ever heard of Imhotep? They say they don't know who is Imhotep. I now asked them, do you know who is Napoleon Bonaparte of France? They said, yes, they are aware of him. I said, you see, it is because we are all brainwashed. You don't know nothing of your ancestors. You glorify the ancestors of your oppressors. So all these things will bring about mental colonialism, whereby we see anything white as great and anything black as backward. So the only way Africans can liberate themselves from these shackles of mental colonialism is to start embracing their history. The first history books that was written in Africa were written by Europeans. Europeans have no right to write our history for us because they are not indigenous to our culture. They are not indigenous to our tradition. It is we that are indigenous to our culture and our tradition. It is only we that can pen down our history. So look at what they do. What do? They will leave Oxford University. They will leave Cambridge University, and they will come to Africa, precisely Kemet, which let the audience know that Kemet is the former name for Egypt, and Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, Kemet means land of the black because it was dominated by black people. That's a topic on its own. So, what we want our people to understand is very simple. Since there is no time, they should understand their history. They should love their history. Their history has been untold for too long. It has been untold for too long that they need to know. Now, let us just emphasize on this African man, Imhotep. Now, I went to school. I read political science for 4 years. Everything that they taught me in philosophy, in political theory, in political ideologies, were mainly the ideologies, the philosophy of Greek Europeans. They tell me about Socrates. They tell me about Plato. They tell me about Aristotle. They even tell me about Hippocrates. Now, the point is that who are these men? How did they got the knowledge that they claim that they have? Where did they get it from? They don't ask this kind of question. They don't. Now, we have evidence. We have concrete evidence showing in Egyptian shrines, pyramids, and temples that European students left Greece, came to Africa to acquire knowledge. A Greek historian, Herodotus, they call him the father of history. He came to Kemet in 450 BC. He saw our civilization. He was so flabbergasted to open his mouth to write, precisely, to write that Africa is the cradle of civilization. Because he knows that this civilization cannot be found anywhere in the world. So before he would declare us the cradle of civilization, it simply means that there is no civilization like that anywhere in the world. And this civilization are still recorded in different parts of Africa, Egypt, Sudan, Mali, and Ethiopia. But the problem is that our lecturers in Africa have failed. They cannot go to that place to get knowledge, coupled with our governments. They have failed. That is why professors in Oxford and Cambridge will come to this Africa, will come to Africa, enter our pyramids, start rewriting our history. As I'm talking to you now, there are a lot of persons going to Egypt repainting images made by our ancestors from black to white. So these things, you will come to understand that 30 years coming, our youth will still believe that Egypt is not part of Africa. Now, the reason why we are talking about Egypt as the cradle of civilization is the same way they talk about ancient Greece as the center of civilization in Europe. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. The same way they say Greece is the center of civilization in Europe, same Egypt is the center of civilization in Africa. So we should get the point clear. Egypt was not only the civilized place in Africa. We have even Benin here in Nigeria. We have Ethiopia. We have Mali. We have Sudan. These are highly civilized places that these Greek Europeans came to study. Okay, so the issue is that Thales, who they call the first Greek philosopher, Thales, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, all came to Africa to acquire knowledge. Now, they are not the fathers of this knowledge. Even Hippocrates and even Pythagoras, they are not the fathers of this knowledge.
Precious is off, possibly because of internet. We shall be getting him back. Lynda, so far
That's fine, yes. I know that we often with live feeds from Nigeria, we do have cuts and scrambling. I just think it's it's wonderful, the information. I just love Precious's passion as well about what he talks about. And my research that I was doing several years ago intersected with him. That's how we actually came to meet, and I came to know him. And through him, I started to get to know a little bit more about Nigeria and meet the Nigerian people and become friends online with Mubarak Bala, who I then became very involved with his campaign when he was illegally imprisoned. And then I started becoming involved with other things in Nigeria. So it's through Precious, who was my first Nigerian friend, that I am doing many things that I am doing today. And it was through the research that I was doing. I was raised in a then Rhodesia colonial education system, oppressive education system put in place by the British. I finished my last final years of schooling in South Africa under the apartheid system, which was an education system in South Africa built off the racist supremacist Rhodesian, at that time, system, which was all from Cecil John Rhodes' times, and specific things they put into our education, as well as brainwashing techniques and things like that. I was absolutely horrified years later, when I became a mother myself, to see traces of the same thing in my children's education system. Now, my children were raised in East Africa. Due to circumstances, I had to come back to South Africa, where my family had to leave Zimbabwe, and we had to flee to South Africa. And then, so I came back here after spending 14 years in East Africa. So I was horrified to see snippets of my education in my children's New South Africa Rainbow Nation education, and I started looking further into it. And that is how I realized so much is still wrong in our education system, which led me to things I was discovering, which led me to finding Precious Ebenezer, and of course that's tying all in with the Egyptian history and the history of the civilization of all people in the world. And there are people today even who understand evolution, and they completely agree that Africa is the cradle of humankind, but yet they still won't accept the fact that we were the most advanced and civilized race. I say race, I'm white, but you know what I mean. So I'm just saying is that it's so important that we teach this in our schools, because it starts with our children. And just like we have propaganda today that we're aware of, we mustn't think that just because we see old historical texts and books like the Bible, that there wasn't also propaganda involved there. You know, the old texts and books and things that you're supposed to respect and believe, there was also a lot of fake stuff written in there, because our continent is the wealthiest, second largest continent in the world, with the most incredible advanced civilization, and our mineral wealth alone. Everybody wanted a piece of that. And of course, we traveled around the world and traded all over the world. So people got to know that we had a lot of gold and things in Africa in those days. And they decided that they wanted a piece of it, and they wanted to oppress the black race. It's like it in any situation with war. You always get people who see people as being a threat, and they want to overpower them and overcome and oppress them. My issue is that our people are still oppressed today. And I just want all the black people to understand, if they knew their true history, if they believed their true history, and they took the time to know it, religion would be something that would automatically fall away, because you cannot put religion with this truth. Yes, Ebenezer, welcome back.
Before you come on board,
Okay.
Precious, well done, Lynda. Well done, Precious, for the first part of it. We know we are going to be having internet challenges, connectivity, due to our different settings. We appreciate that. I want to make a few comments from what you presented, but also to put it back on the line would be going, so that we can be able to benefit our viewers, but also those who tune in and listen. Remember, there are those who are blind, but best can follow this show. So when I say our listeners, I'm talking about people who can't see, but basically listen to what we say. Thank you so much. You gave it a good introduction, but I want to emphasize that one, we are all Africans. So when you're talking about Africa, we're talking about Black people, we're talking about Africans, we are all Africans. Despite of our skin pigment, whether brown, yellow, red, white, black, dark, black, we are all Africans, and we basically come from the single Homo sapient. And as you said, the big mother or the mothers that were black and came from Africa and went all over the world. That's where we all come from. That's why you can always get a person of a different color from an African woman up to now, because we are all Africans. We are all Africans. So that must sink into whoever is listening so that we are clear on that. Number two, which I wanted to clarify, it's not really right scientifically to say that Africans only have the melanin. No, it's not scientifically correct. Basically, all human beings have melanin, but the subtypes differ. Some may have more, and others may have maybe less, but all have melanin. And in fact, there's some bit of food one can eat and gets even more melanin. So to me, and from a scientific point of view, all human beings have melanin because they are coming from the same source. So to clarify that, I wanted you to note that, but also for our listeners and viewers, just to be clear on the issue of melanin. Yes, I may have this black pigment, which may have more, but everyone has this melanin in themselves, because this is what makes us human, partly. So I wanted to clarify that point. The other thing I wanted to handle going forward, because we want to use this forum for education, we want to ensure that our children, our sisters, our brothers, the students all over the world get the basic education. And to me, this platform is not for people in Africa alone. It's for everyone. So as we address your knowledge, your information, know that someone in England is interested to hear your knowledge. Someone in Australia, in the US, is interested to hear this knowledge. Why? Because much of it has been hidden from all of us, from all students. People in US don't learn this history as much as people in Africa don't learn it. Or when they learn it, it's biased, it's one-sided. So we need these teachings you are going to be giving us. And over time, this is our first part, as you can see. We want to continue learning from you, but it should be segmented, and the audience must be wider. But we want an European to listen to this message. We want an American to listen to this message and also learn from it. Now, I want you to take us back to the Africa before colonialism. The Africa before colonialism. We want to know, our audience would like to know, what were Africans doing before colonialism? What were Africans doing? And when I talk about Africa, or Kemet as we put it, that attracted other people, whatever they were, to come and learn from these Africans. How come that we don't learn these things in our education system? How come that, for example, in Uganda, I come from Uganda, where I come from, we had a cesarean section, cesarean birth, where women could be operated before the coming of the Europeans. Before it was even successfully done in Europe, it was being done in the Buganda Kingdom. It was being done in the Bonyoro Kingdom. We want to know a few things that people were doing in Africa. For example, people think that actually Africans never had houses, which is laughable. People think that Africans never had roads, which is laughable. People think that Africans never had a government never had.
Well, we haven't. Let's be honest about that.
Yes. So we
None of us have.
yeah. People want to think that basically we have learned everything from others. Yes, basically we had these things in our own homestead. So I want you to take us back to the Africa before colonialism, so that the listener, the viewer, can hear this message. What was Nigeria doing? It was not Nigeria then. Those kingdoms doing before. How come that we were doing trade before? How come that they had even their own means of exchange before? So that people can know that whatever has been said about this so-called dark continent is actually a lie meant to serve a certain purpose. I want to thank you as I conclude on the issue of religion. And actually, in our next topic, we shall talk about religion as such, because you are right. Isis, Helu, and all those other gods were gods from Kemet, which were taken to Greece, which were taken to Rome, and other kingdoms, states, and nations, and actually worshipped by those people. So, but people need to know these things, how it all began. Why do we have Isis in Kemet? Isis we see later in Greek, ancient Greek, and we see later in Rome. How come that even on their currency they had these black gods? But how come that basically someone in Uganda doesn't know that the Greeks worshipped a black god, that the Romans worshipped a black god? And what's the basis of this?
And we were taught, we were taught here that they were fake idols. It was a fake idol and that we mustn't worship them. Yeah.
Exactly. So take us back to that history. Take us back to that history so that people can understand the history they missed. Thank you very much.
There are two types of Africans. We have Africans before the Holocaust and Africans after the Holocaust. Now, the Africans before the Holocaust were not slaves. They were builders. They were inventors. They were good in astronomy. They were good in mathematics. They were there in mysticism, in different aspects of life. Although you cannot say that a people are not civilized. Every society had a process of civilization. They had a process of development. Okay, according to late Professor Claude Ake in the University of Port Harcourt here in Nigeria, in his book Social Science as Imperialism, he said that development is different in different areas. Different areas have different areas in perspective of development. Now, just because these people are like this in this particular level, the foreigner will conclude that they are not developed or they are not civilized, which is wrong. Okay, now the African before this time, before colonialism or before slavery, was busy in the process of invention. And I will give you an example. During the third dynasty in Egypt, around 2780 BCE to be precise, a black African man with his group of engineers mathematically, logically built the first and the oldest pyramid in the world, called the Step Pyramid of Djoser or the Pyramid of Saqqara. Now, this pyramid was built, in fact, it was the first skyscraper in the world, the first block building in the world. It was built by a black man. Now, around 1550 BC, Africa were already in the process of gynecology, the medical study of women's health. During the reign of Queen Hatshepsut, she and her scientists wrote a
Sorry, Precious has gone off again there.
Lynda, as we wait for Hedo to come back, you can also give us your input on this, Lynda. We are welcome. Lynda.
Thank you. You know, it's something I've always said about civilization because I'm sick and tired of hearing this rhetoric that's African, that we were barbaric, primitive, uneducated, wild savages running around in animal skins. Because just as Precious was saying there, it's all relative. Civilization develops differently at different places. You know, we look at things like the Great Zimbabwe ruins and the Kingdom of Benin, and there are so many amazing structures. As the pyramids, like Ebenezer said there, were the first skyscrapers. you know, it's the same as I just said now with looking at old historical texts and being able to understand there was propaganda there. You can't look at a skyscraper in Dubai today and say, wow, that's the world's tallest skyscraper, and understand that just because it was a pyramid at that time, that was a skyscraper. And the fact that when the colonialists came here, they found us living in grass houses, wooden houses that didn't have solid foundations. They viewed that as primitive. But for us as African people, that was practical because we didn't all live like that, but for the climate that we live in, the same as clothing, the same as polygamy made perfect sense. We didn't have orphans. I can talk one whole topic on the polygamy, but you can imagine the colonialists arriving and seeing one man with 4 wives and the women are all breastfeeding everybody's children and everything. To them, it was like, oh, primitive. But if you look at it, it wasn't primitive. It was actually a very, very advanced way of a family structure that really worked. And this is the problem, is that we were taught that all that was wrong. At the end of the day, the most important thing for us as a human species is survival, that our human species does not go extinct. And if you look at what was deemed primitive in those days, us living on a diet of meat and running around with spears and killing animals and that, knowing, like Precious said, navigating the stars, the solar system, the tides, and knowing all these intricate things as African people, it was instinctual things that you know, like when the weather's about to change, things that are the most important things to survival, not them coming here with all their fancy clothes and paintings and special foods and things. That is not what is going to save mankind at the end of the day. It is those skills that we had as African people of navigating things, instinctively knowing when there was danger nearby and things like that, that just because they came with their Monet paintings and their fancy clothes and that and looked and thought we were primitive, we were actually far more advanced.
Yes, welcome back, Precious.
Welcome back, Precious.
Before you
we're having a network issue right here.
No problem.
A lot of network issues right here. Okay, you see, I was saying something about the African before colonialism and slavery. Now, I have mentioned about the issue of engineering, architectural monuments, which is starting with the 3rd dynasty that pyramids were built. Now, if African movie industries like the one we have in Nigeria, they call Nollywood, if they want to present an African, they will present an African that is like a monkey, an African that used leaf on his body. Now, if Africans were like that, then where did they get the technology to cut stone to build the Benin Wall that is even 10,000 years stronger, older than the Chinese wall? If Africans are primitive, where did they get the materials, the tools to build such monuments like like those pyramids in Giza? Okay, the thing is that we had civilization, but it's just that our modern scholars have failed to research. That's why they say that our histories are written on stones, in tombs, but our modern scholars have failed to go to those tombs to write it out into a paper for our African children to have it as knowledge. That is why the white man will present anything and we are going to believe. Now, talking about the aspect of science, Africans have done so well in science, especially in medicine. That was why when the first the first Europeans, when they came to Africa, they saw that we have already gone far in science. Hippocrates, the one that they call the father of medicine, if you check Google, they will just bring his name first. That is the father of medicine. It's a lie. He's not the father of medicine. Africans have been practicing medicine since from the time of Imhotep, this same black man that built the first pyramid or the first skyscraper in the world. Now, during the reign of Hatshepsut, Africans wrote a medical paper, or you call them papyrus, that means papyri. We had a medical paper called the Ebers Papyri, E-B-A-R-S, the Ebers Papyri. Now, the Ebers Papyri contains gynecology on women's health. It shows that around 1550 BCE, Africans are into gynecology, studying women's health, pregnancy, and birth control, even plant parenthood. Now, we also had another medical papyri, still in medicine, called the Edwin Smith Papyri, around 1600 BCE. where Africans were into surgery. They don't teach these things in history classes. They don't teach it. So we were already in the sciences. We were already in the philosophy. What about the first calendar? Africans in astronomy studying the movement of the stars, the movement of the moon, the sun, whatever. We already recorded the 365 days that we are using today. It was called the solar calendar. We had the oldest calendar before Cleopatra. Cleopatra gave this calendar to Julius Caesar in 48 BCE because the Romans were having inaccurate calendar. So it was she that gave it to him. So where did Africans get this knowledge? Where did they get this knowledge of astronomy to have the first calendar that have 365 days? They will never teach it. I was in school for 4 years. I was never told, even when I had friendship, closeness with some students in history department, although I was not in history department, I was in political science. I was never told for once that my ancestors left North Africa, invaded Europe, precisely Spain, Portugal, and southern France, and colonized them, ruled these Europeans for over 700 years, precisely from 711 AD to 1492. They did not teach us in school. But they will keep telling me that the British, through indirect rule, colonized Nigeria. They will tell me that the French, through the policy of assimilation, colonized the people of this, as in Senegalese. They will tell me that the Belgian, the Germans, they use paternalism on Africa. These are European colonial policies. When we they start telling our African children that their ancestors went to Europe to colonize white Europeans and even built the oldest university for the Europeans, called the University of Salamanca. When we they teach our children that when the Black Africans went to Europe to colonize and invade these Europeans, they built over 600 public bathrooms for the Europeans. I'm sorry to say this. This is not racism. Go to Spain, enter Europe, just get this research. It is there. They will tell you with empirical fact, historical fact, that our ancestors have colonized Europeans for over 700 years. But if you walk in the street of Nigeria, if you walk in the street of Uganda, if you walk in the street of South Africa, many of our youth don't know this. Because when they were in school, the only thing they teach them is that white people colonize us, but Black people have not colonized white people before. That is what they teach us. Europeans,
Can I just
I'm sorry to say this.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry,
okay.
as a white person, as a white African, 8th, 9th generation African, who was schooled in the colonial education system, the same as you were, but you must remember that we were segregated because whites have always had a totally different education here, in the best schools with all the better teachers and facilities, and Blacks have been given mission schools, and we have been taught two different educations. So just as Ebenezer is telling us, the Black people were taught their fake version of history. We were also taught it. We were raised as whites in Africa to be masters of the Black people, for the Black people to be our servants, and that they would never be more than laborers and people underneath us. I can attest to that, to the education that I had as a white person in Africa, that none of you would have had, none of you had. That is how we as whites in Africa were conditioned and brainwashed to believe that we were better than the Black race, and that we had come here and taken control of Africa, and we must stay here because Africa needs us. They can't do it without the white people. And thank God I was raised by open-minded parents, and I wasn't raised like that. But I'm telling you, from a white's point of view, that is exactly how the education system still works here today. But it's hidden and we can't see it, and it's a real problem.
Okay, let me come in there. A minute, Precious, before you come back. Let me come in there. Lynda, you have raised something very important. But I have to say I'm happy that my mother is watching. Jan Screen just sent a message.
She's also Zambian, isn't she?
Jan Screen is my Scottish mother, a very lovely friend of mine. Is watching and actually has sent a message of appreciation. And we love all of you who are watching us and following this kind of education we're sharing here. Now, Lynda, you have raised something very important. My take on this is that education system has been used as a tool to create a wedge between people. And I agree with you. It has been used as a tool not to educate, to empower, but to educate, to create classes and divisions within the people. And
Yes, it has.
you cannot blame it on the students who may be in their 40s or 60s or 80s. You blame it on the politicians and those who design the curriculum. Now, when a child in the US or Europe or Africa is not taught about proper history, but is taught a history as the teacher would like it to be taught, you cannot blame the student. You cannot blame Lynda to grow up knowing that she has to be a manager. And Precious has to be a laborer.
Exactly.
You know, because the education
problem is we are all growing up as adults and we are teaching that again and again and again, and it's got to stop.
Exactly.
It's got to stop.
Now, why? Because the people, as Precious said, who wrote this syllabus have an agenda. The agenda is to put you down because it's politics at play. Now, why don't we have an education system that talks about a first university in the world being found in Africa? We don't hear that. But everyone's going to tell you that they brought you enlightenment, that they taught you how to read and how to write. They're not going to tell you that in Kemetic history, we know that writing and reading was already done before by the people in Kemet. Now, before you come in, now, why it's important to teach people the right history, partly it is an empowerment tool. It's an empowerment tool to appreciate where they have come from, to know that basically there are people who are doing inventions. And you are right, Precious, and I can add this. People like Himotep and others were already mathematicians, were already chemists, were already physicians, they were already doing a lot of things. A person like Himotep of Kemet was already inventing formulas for treating over 200 diseases. If you look at pharaohs like Ramses and others, we are being treated by people in their own area. I always say that I grew up in my villages down there in Uganda, where I knew that my grandmother could go in the bush and pick leaves and treat us. Wounds could be treated, fever, and almost every ailment, including having a fractured bone, could be treated without going to main hospital. They had their own ways of treating their own people. But today, we have lost that because we think we cannot do anything using our local herbs. So, back to you, Precious. We want to understand why it's important to re-educate, to unlearn, why it's important to let people know that we have been miseducated, that we now think we cannot invent stuff. We must wait for someone to do an invention for you. We cannot be creative. We cannot do things which basically people were doing before this formal education was brought in. So back to you, Hello. What went wrong and how can we rectify it?
See, our history has been plagiarized, it has been buried, and it has been stolen. Now, what we have to do is to start going back to search for that our lost history, our plagiarized history. Now, our governments have a lot of role to play because history is very important to the African people. If you look at what is history, to my own perspective, history is the study of yesterday to understand today in order to have a better tomorrow. Because if people who don't know their yesterday Because if people who don't know their yesterday cannot understand their today, and they will continue to be slaves to their oppressors. That is why when you don't know your history, a foreigner will write a history for you, and you will accept with alacrity, thinking that that is your history. Now, let me just give you one example now. Africans, many African youth of today still believe in history classes. Even our lecturers are teaching it, that a man from Italy, sponsored by the Spanish monarchy, named Christopher Columbus, discovered America. And a lot of articles, a lot of books have been written to debunk the claim of Columbus. Columbus never discovered America, and it is a very important topic that people in Africa need to understand. Just like in Nigeria, they will say that a man named Mungo Park discovered River Niger. What is discovery going by the meaning of discovery? I will give birth to a child. My child will go to the classroom, and in the examination hall, they will ask a question: who discovered America? And the child will quickly write Christopher Columbus. That is mental colonialism, which is not true. Christopher Columbus, before getting to America, was told that people with dark-skinned color have already landed in America. Now, I'm sorry. I know the question is, how is history important to Africans? But I'm using this as an example to illustrate as in my answer towards your question. Now, when Columbus came, they told him that black-skinned people came to this place to go into trade deals with them. They showed him spears, arrows, and knife. He took these spears and arrows to Spain to carefully and scientifically examine them, and they discovered that these things are coming from Africa. As if that is not enough, Columbus went back to America and slaughtered over 100 million Native Americans, coupled with penetrating diseases into their land so that they will die like chickens. Now, after he has succeeded in reducing the population of these Native Americans, which he mistakes them for Red Indians, because they are not Red Indians. Their name is not Red Indians. Christopher Columbus was going to India. He was not getting to India. So when he met these Native Americans, he concluded that this is India. So he started using the word Red Indians. These are the indigenous Americas. After he reduced the population, what did he do? He started enslaving the remaining ones, and they were dying easily because of hard labor. It was at this moment a family member of Columbus named Bartholomew de las Casas in 1517 advised the European government that the only way they can substitute these Native Americans that are dying so easily is to come to Africa and use Africans as slaves to work in America. This was how black people started leaving Africa to America, to be used to replace the slaves in America who were dying easily. Now, this history, many persons don't know, but they celebrate Columbus Day on October. I think it's October in America. And Africans also, some of them also know of this history. So the thing is that if we don't know this kind of history, these are the untold history. I categorize them as the untold history because they don't teach them. So if Africans know this kind of history, they will be able to know that their ancestors were great people. They will know that their ancestors, their ancestors are great people, and they will build on that knowledge to develop tomorrow. That is history. So once they know or they have knowledge of yesterday, if they have knowledge of yesterday about their ancestors, they will build on that knowledge today for a better tomorrow. So this is why history is very, very sacrosanct. This is why history is very, very important for Africans to have it. You don't need to go to the university to study history or to have a certificate in history to understand your African history. I'm sorry to say this, and I will say it in this show, that the educational system is a corruption. Because
I agree with you 100%.
Everything is programmed. Everything is programmed to follow a particular curriculum, just like you rightly said.
Yes.
Everything is programmed to follow as in a particular curriculum. Okay. Now, who owns this curriculum? When the Europeans left Africa after colonialism, they kept their curriculum with us, and that is what we are using today. That is what we are using today. So why are we not going to be brainwashed to believe that white is beautiful and black is ugly? Why are we not going to see ourselves? In fact, we hate ourselves. Black people, we don't love ourselves. We have this hate for ourselves because when the Europeans came, I'm sorry, let me give you this brief history. when the first English ship came to Africa, which they describe as Jesus of Lubeck, when the first English ship came to Africa, piloted or captained by John Hawkins, do you know that the missionaries were on top of the ship while the slave masters were inside the ship? Now, the aim is that the missionaries should go and pacify these Africans with religion, so that when they will come with their battalions, with their whatever, they can be able to control the character and the mentality of Africans. So when the missionary came, they brought an education for us called the Christian education. Our African little boys and girls were made priests. Precisely, the boys were made priests. Some were made soldiers, police officers, so that they can be able to torture their fellow Africans to follow the Europeans to America and be used as slaves. They told us that we should pray, according to Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya. He said that when the missionary came, they told us that we should pray. And after we finished praying, we found a book called the King James Version of the Bible in our hands. And when we open our eyes, our land has been taken from us. Today, the African land has been taken from Africans. Let us be specific. Africans have the Bible, while the land is owned by their oppressors. So they introduced an education called the Christian education. That's why if you come to Nigeria, there's a man named Samuel Ajayi Crowder. I made a post about him some days ago. This man was used by the Christian missionaries to destroy African traditions. And I will say it here live on this place. He took these Europeans to different shrines, different places, to burn down shrines, to burn down our ancestral worship, because he was educated to believe that white is good. Now let me say one thing again. When the Europeans came to Africa, they told Africans during the time of the slave trade that God is white, Jesus is white, all the angels are white, but the devil is black. So when the Africans look at them and say, that is the beginning of hatred. That is the beginning of hatred. We started hating ourselves. We started hating our color. Okay, we started hating that thing that we love so much. So now we started seeing them as children of God, and they call themselves the chosen ones. While we see ourselves as children of the devil, Satan. So that's why when they want to present movies, or when they want to act movies rather, they present God as white, Jesus as white, all the angels as white, and the devil is black. That is the beginning of our mental colonialism. So you see, history is very important. Yeah. We need to know our history to be liberated from these shackles of brainwashing and mental colonialism. Because if we don't know our history, we will continue to believe that our ancestors are failures. But our ancestors are not failures. Our ancestors are not failures. They did things that even the Europeans today cannot do. Okay, so if you try to understand African history very well, there are some things you just shift, you just take back. You will not accept it again. So I think this is an opportunity for Africans to know that our history is very important, and a lot of things need to change in our education. We need a new educational system. I always say this: we need a new educational system, which I myself describe as African science. Because if we have our own educational system, we'll be able to know our history, understand that science started in Africa, medicine started in Africa, architecture and engineering started in Africa. We should go back and study those things. And our government have a lot of role to play in the educational system. But I don't think our government will do it. I don't think our government will do it. Do you know why? Because you cannot be taking loan from Europe. You cannot be taking loan from America, and you cannot pay those loans, and yet you want to change some things. They will influence you. They will influence you. So you see, Africa is underdeveloped today. Africa is backward today because we allowed foreigners to tell us what to do. And our leaders now have become slaves under neo-colonialism.
Absolutely.
According to Kwame Nkrumah, in his book, Neo-Colonialism, the highest stage of imperialism, he said that Africans are only independent on the world map. And it's true. We are only independent on the world map.
It's true.
Economically and politically, we are not independent because there are still some persons controlling the economy, the politics of Nigeria, and they have multinational companies in Africa. These multinational companies are busy are busy exploring and exploiting the resources of Africa, and they will take it to Europe to develop that side. This thing has been happening for a very long time. During the time of colonialism, the Europeans have their multinational companies here that they use to take our resources abroad. Now they will buy our resources, or let me say they will take our resources in a very cheap level, take it to Europe, refine it into finished products, and bring it back to us to buy in an exorbitant price. Let me give an example of Nigeria. Today, there are no refineries working in Nigeria. There are no refineries that are working effectively and efficiently in Nigeria, because every day we take our raw materials abroad, refine it into finished goods, and bring it back to us to buy in an exorbitant price. It has been there since the time of slave trade and colonialism. So Africans need to wake up. We need to know our history. Our history is deep. Our history is so deep. Okay, let me give you one example.
We are listening.
I think he's
Precious?
frozen me.
Yes, Lynda, as we wait for Precious to get his connection back, I just wanted to add a few things on what he's saying.
Yes, please.
Just to emphasize, I think it's important to know that our education system is corrupted, but also to know.
In 1798.
Precious, your network is breaking. If you can hear me. Precious, your network is breaking. Maybe Dennis can. Dennis can remove him, and then we.
Are they little cards for us?
Yeah, we can remove him, and then we fix him later on.
You know, Kato, the thing is that, but this is the whole thing, and I know we've had lots of discussions about it, you and I, because I'm so. Uganda is the one country in Africa that has the largest number of humanist schools, and that is really practicing correct teaching methods with critical thinking and that in our humanist schools in Uganda. And my belief one day is that Uganda will be each of our countries has something amazing to offer all together as a continent when we are united one day as a continent. And Uganda, I firmly believe, is going to be where our education is going to come from, because you guys have had so many years of experience with your humanist schools there, and with your critical thinking and the way that you teach religions as subjects rather than as moral codes and ways of life. And just the number of people that are coming out of a country that is one of our worst countries at the moment for torture and genocide, and so much that's been hidden in your country. But yet you guys are still keeping on with these humanist schools, which I think is phenomenal. And I just think that we need to know also, what is the African Union doing after all these years? It's certainly not what it was set up to be all those years ago. The AU should have been on top of this problem years ago and should have changed our education system. If you look at a country like Nigeria that gained its, I always go independence, because none of us are actually, we are programmed to believe we are independent, but we're not actually. So they got their independence in 1960. And so that is what, 60 odd years ago. But yet they're still teaching the same education system 60 years later, and it's the same in each and every one of our countries. You cannot tell me, I first thought in my country of Zimbabwe, there must have been a cover up or people must not have known, and also in South Africa. Then I started researching it and realized that it's in every single country here that was ever colonized by the British. And then I traced it back and realized that our systems are still owned by Pearson International, which is a controversial company in itself. So our governments are still controlled by the West. They are still in bed with the West, exploiting our resources and our people for their own financial gain. Our governments are not going to teach us the real history and allow the proper education system in our schools. None of our governments are going to do that, and none of our governments are going to allow religion to be something that falls by the wayside. It's up to us as private individuals in our private schools and that, but then we know we are persecuted, and we are the ones that are told we are wrong and we are devil's children, and we are killed and we are hunted. And you have someone like Mubarak Bala who is sitting imprisoned, falsely imprisoned now with a 24-year sentence for trying to teach his people, the people of Nigeria, the truth about how they've been hoodwinked by religion. And I think it's very telling the fact that those of us who are outspoken, especially in our more Islamic countries, are killed. We are silenced. We are not allowed to publish our stuff on mainstream media. Our books are taken off the shelf. Even Precious, I warned him when he published his work, he was going to start being targeted and have issues. And sure enough, it has happened to him as well. So how do we resolve this problem? That is the big million-dollar question. How do we do it?
Yes, Lynda, I may come in right there and chip in. But before I do that, I want to send a message to Amber Dawn Boyang Anderson, who has sent a message to us, but also to tell you, Amber, that happy birthday. I know it is happening today. Just to say it on the show, our friend Amber Dawn Boyang Anderson.
Thank you. I know Amber's doing a lot of good work in Uganda, supporting Ugandan people there at the moment. Thank you, Amber. And I see we also had Levi from Liberia. He left a message earlier. Levi is from Liberia, and he also spent time in Rwanda. And that was wonderful to see what he said as well there about a PR campaign or an awareness campaign. What I'm really hoping is that Precious is going to be able to turn his writings into a children's history book. Geared for African children, that we can at least start getting into our humanist schools in Africa, and that we as parents can buy for our children and our friends' children, so that we can start educating our children. As he mentioned there, my kids know the truth. My son, for history a year ago, the answers that the things that he was learning for an exam, I had to test him on, and he was giving me the correct answer, and he was giving me the textbook answer. And I said, why don't you just write the real answers down when I ask you questions like who discovered America or whatever? He said, I can't, Mummy, because if I do, I'll get 0. I'll fail my history test. And so he is forced to write down the fake answers and things that he knows are incorrect, because the system will tell him that he's failed, when in fact he hasn't failed. He's passed with flying colors. So that is the situation that we are in. And I don't see it changing anytime soon. It's very difficult because our governments are all corrupt. Every single one of them are corrupt.
Yeah. To come in there, just adding to the message which Amber has just put on the screen. She says an experiment which I actually have watched, where students, little children, black and white, were given dolls as an experiment. I watched that, black dolls and white dolls, and then they were asked which was better, which was looking beautiful, and we all know the answer. When I watched it, I mean, they are like, no, I think this is better, and including the black children basically thought that being black was not good enough. You know, this is the message Amber put on the screen. I've been reading that, but I watched that research, and it goes back to the fundamentals we have been talking about today, and which Precious has been talking about. I mean, the education system that programs a people to think they are not good enough. When you see the beautification industry, Lynda, you are an African. You have been here in Africa. You know,
I talk about that a lot as well.
You know,
yes.
How many black-skinned women and men in Africa buy tons and tons of cosmetics to shed off their black skin.
And it's praised, and you're told that you're beautiful the paler your skin is.
Why? Because they have been programmed
exactly.
right from a white Jesus, which we have been talking about. When you tell people that your God looks like Lynda and your devil looks like Kato, basically people are going to hate this Kato and are going to love the Lynda, because everyone wants to associate with the good and everyone wants to hate the ugly and the bad. So the education system, which actually is imbued with religion, which paints a white God which promotes supremacy of colors, leaves so many people questioning why they have a color that's not good enough. So when Amber sends that message, and incidentally I watched the video about a year or two ago, where Black children basically don't think that a black doll is good enough. They think that a Caucasian doll is better. It means that you are programming these people, you have programmed a generation to think low of themselves, and therefore they are going to do everything to fight the identity crisis, to fight the inferiority complex in which they feel inferior, they feel unable to adopt. They want to be like others. So that education is what we need to take to the people. This is why this education tonight is very important. And we are going to have a series of this training. People can appreciate that Lynda is beautiful as I'm beautiful, as Precious is beautiful, as a Chinese is beautiful. We are all good enough in our skin color. Basically, all of us come from a black woman. We are actually all black people. There's no need of hating each other. There's no need of praising one side and putting the other down. No one wins when one is down. We just need to know, how do we move forward together, but also where are our weaknesses? For example, Precious, I should tell you this, and Lina knows this, and you know this. Our politicians is Africa, not angels. They have let us down.
Sure, we've got our own issues to own up to.
We even point fingers elsewhere. We know we are having monsters who have been programmed, who have been brainwashed to think that they cannot do much for themselves, for their own people, apart from stealing from their own people, apart from imprisoning them and killing them. Who do you blame? Honestly, you cannot blame everything to the colonizers no longer with you much time physically. Now,
religion. I blame religion.
We have a black man and a black woman who has been conditioned to hate themselves, to hate their own people, and to promote another gender. When people in Africa are stealing money, they are investing it elsewhere, in Asia, in Europe, in the US. They don't think about themselves as worth the investment. They think themselves as fragile, as having a war anytime soon. So the education system we must tackle tonight and in the following discussions is change the way people see themselves, especially people in Africa. Why do we go to schools and don't learn about our minerals, Lynda? Why don't we learn
exactly? That's another thing of mine. Yeah.
Why don't we learn how to be good agricultural scientists right from primary school? Why do we think agriculture is bad? Why do you think mining is not worth it when we have all these minerals? Why don't we study about our environment? Why don't we study about our cities, about our culture, about our history? Why do we need to study about European history, for example? When I was in high school, I was studying European history. But why should I study it before I study African history? Before I study Kemetic history? So we must go back to the roots and understand who we are, where we come from, what was the contribution of our ancestors. And basically in our next discussion, Precious, I'm going to request you to research more of Africa before, so that we can understand the Africa before. Then in another discussion, we shall have religion, but also see the history of religion, so that we understand when we see Jesus today, where is this Jesus derived from? And therefore, what's the implication of understanding the religion that we lost and the religion we have? Because the religion is politics. It's a tool used to enslave mentally a people. And not only black people, but a people. A people, regardless of their race, are enslaved by religion. So back to you, Precious, as we conclude. We want to conclude this tonight, knowing that next weekend we shall have you again, and we continue from where we have stopped. Back to you, Precious. Over to you.
Okay. Okay. And again, I want to say thank you for this show, for this program. It's a means to really awaken the sleeping consciousness of our people to to start doing their own personal research. See, the government will not really do this for us now because everything we are saying here, the government have a bigger role to play. As I'm talking to you, in Nigeria, the lecturers are on strike. Okay, the lecturers are, as in, they feel like they have not been taken care of properly, and the government is trying its own best to say that this is what we have that we can give to you to go back to the classroom. Now, whatever the argument might be between the government and the lecturers, the point is that everything boils down to the government. The government should, should have or should invest more in education so that our researchers, our professors will be visiting ancient kingdoms in Africa to dig out the untold history of our ancestors, that our ancestors wrote on stones, on pyramids, and in different shrines in Ethiopia, in Sudan, in Mali, and even in Kemet, which is Egypt. So if they can go to these places to get this knowledge, write it down, and make it affordable for our children in Africa to get, then I think that is the beginning of liberating ourselves from mental colonialism. The government have to start investing in education. Education that is based on Black African history, to be precise.
Yes.
Okay. You cannot tell me to go to the university to study the history of Europe, to study the history of the Mesopotamians, but you don't want me to study the untold history of my own ancestors. You should understand that this is the process of keeping us permanently brainwashed. Because as I always say, there is something about Africans that they don't want Africans to know about themselves. And until our government and our leaders started putting a lot of resources to improve on our education, in order for us to have our own history taught in our classes, then I think we'll continue to blab, we'll continue to argue, we'll continue to talk, because the government have a great role to play. But there is something I want to add. I also want to advise our African brothers and sisters to self-educate. Self-educate. Start getting yourself disciplined. Put yourself in the process of knowing your history. Knowing your history, because once you know your yesterday, you'll be able to understand your today to have a better tomorrow. And that is what history is talking about. We don't know. Many Africans don't know who is Ramesses the Great, but they know about Alexander the Great. Many Africans don't know that the first human being to preach and teach about the worship of a one God, which they call in religious studies monotheism, was a Black African man named Akhenaten. Many Africans, I still say again, many Africans don't know that there was a time Africans were doing great in science. They don't know all these things, because the only thing they tell them about is white history. Okay? In philosophy, in the area of philosophy, in his school, the Platonic academic, Plato advised his students that the only place they can acquire knowledge to study great men is in Kemet, Egypt, Africa to be precise. So the thing is that even the whites, the Europeans, they know, because when the first Europeans came, they ate with us. They did everything with us. There was no racism until after slavery.
I know.
There was no racism until after slavery. So if the Africans can know this part of their history, then they will be able to face the reality. But now we don't know our history, and because we don't know our history, anything that is written for us, we accept with alacrity, which is very wrong. So I think our governments have a very significant role to play.
Yes,
to improve
Precious.
on our education system and to direct it to the line of African science. Will be able to know about what has happened before this time.
Yes.
Precious, thank you so much. As we wind up, I want to read messages of people who have been watching,
Yes,
but
we've been
also
getting messages from you.
participating. I will just make them brief. Our friend Galen Middleton in New Zealand sends
Yes, hi,
greetings.
Galen.
She's watching, and she said that she has an 18 months old granddaughter who is a Nepalese Kiwi. The father is Nepalese, the mother is a Kiwi. Of course, Kiwi and New Zealanders lovely people there. So, but the granddaughter, loves white dolls. I mean, she was bringing the history, the example of dolls. But to me, I think that's okay, because this is what has been given to the child, you know. But how about we have dolls as people in Africa or wherever they are, dolls which are black dolls, and then you start giving them to your children and ensure that they also appreciate their own beauty in these dolls. Why do we continue buying dolls that don't resemble our children?
Because social media is showing us that white is what it is.
Yes.
If I try and buy clothing for black friends' children and that, I cannot find anything, very little things in the shops which have got black princesses on the front or black queens or anything to show our black. It's all white Barbie and princess whatever. And it's in the books, in the shops. It's even in our education textbooks and everything. It's all white princesses, white kings and queens, and it's not right. It's not. They've slipped a few blacks and Indians in here to make it PC, but
the reason I love having this show with you, Lynda, is that we really think. SYNC. We really think in the same line.
Precious. Sorry, that was the cat.
Can I say something? Can I say something?
Wait, just a minute.
Can I say something?
Okay, yes, go ahead, Precious.
Come on, boy.
Okay, you see, racism is not born. It's not innate. Before people behave the way they behave to other race, it has been taught. They have been educated about it. They have been made to hate other people. No child, if you give birth to a white child, it is the society that the child belongs to, that white child. Maybe the child is in Britain, in Germany. It is that society that will teach that child racism.
100%.
So
100%.
So let the European society start teaching their children that all human beings are one, that there is nothing like black, there's nothing like white. Because when the Europeans came to Africa, Africans don't know what is white and what is black.
Yeah.
Okay? They don't hate themselves. They don't know. So human beings are the ones that are teaching their fellow human beings how to behave badly towards other race.
Absolutely.
So this is what the Caucasians, the Europeans, or whatever skin color you are, you have to teach your society that love the other race. Because when you build a child to hate another race, that child will become a destruction to the society. And that is an empirical fact.
But you can't help a black child from being wary of a white race, because the white race is still oppressing black people. I see it in South Africa. It is horrific what is going on here.
Sorry. Wait.
Wait, I disagree with Lynda.
Okay, guys.
It's not oppressing any other race.
Lynda, come to South Africa. Come to South Africa for 1 week.
I disagree with you on that.
He says the white race is not oppressing the black race. You come to South Africa, my friend.
I don't agree with you. What I can say is that individuals who are supremacists promote the supremacism that affects all of us. But Lynda, I disagree that the white race is actually oppressing no. But I do believe that individuals who are supremacists are promoting their own ideology. And I also do believe that our educational system is biased, but also promotes supremacism, that favors white supremacists. Lynda,
I
I
have
should
seen.
tell you this. And wait a minute, I should also say this, that I agree with you and Precious on the issue of racism. There was no racism in Africa.
Okay.
There was no racism in the rest of the world until the 16th century,
Sure.
when it was introduced on the plantations. When it was introduced on the plantation, because you have to keep a certain people down in order to be able to subjugate them, in order to be able to control them and make them your own property. Lynda, you and me know that racism is a creation. You can dig it, 16th century creation. Otherwise, people came to Africa, Plateau, and all those guys came to Africa without looking at the skin of the teachers. They were looking for knowledge from Kemet. They all came and learned from here. Socrates and others drank knowledge from Kemet. Kemet is Black Africa. So they never looked at Black people as inferior, or they never looked at themselves as superior. They came to gain knowledge. They were equals. They were students learning from equal partners, equal people. The issue of racism is created by the bourgeoisie, by the rich, by the property owners. Lynda, you and me know that me and you, being not of big means, we don't need to have fear of each other. But the rich fear the poor. Today in Africa, in Uganda, the rich fear the poor. That's why the rich put fences on their houses. Black rich people
protect themselves
fear
from the poor.
Black poor people. So we live in a society that is segmented, that is divided. So we need to appreciate that and trace the history of racism, and we tackle it from our education system. We tackle it from our identity crisis, which basically benefits an industry that sells cosmetics. Precious, you know, Lynda, you know that the Chinese, the Americans, the English merchants that promote, that manufacture these cosmetics are into business. They must work so hard to tell you that being so brown is beautiful, that being so black is not good enough. Because how else are they going to be able to sell their property? How are they going to be able to sell their products, their cosmetic products? They must front you a white Jesus. They must front you a beauty pageant that is white, that is brown, that is slender and slim. That's beauty defined by you, by an industry. But that industry doesn't mean, it does not mean that that industry is owned by every white person. To me, it's the generalization I don't want to import into a discussion. You must identify who benefits from racism, Lynda. Not you, Lynda, my African, white African friend. You don't benefit from racism. You are as neither as myself. There is a class of people that benefits from racism in Africa. Who benefits from thuggery? Who benefits from stealing? Not me, not you, Lynda, not Precious Ebenezer. It's the bourgeoisie. It's the politician who benefits from our taxes. So back to you, Precious. But before I say that, I have to appreciate messages from Stella Namatovu, who is watching and sends greetings. Messages from William Will Smith, who has appreciated Precious. He thanks you for the presentation I've made, but also our friend Professor David Oloston, who has been emphasizing on the issue of education. So on the screen we have memes from our guest Precious Hello, who has put them together down here, and these memes also tell their own story, of course, from other different authors like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, talking about the things, Max Solis, and others. When you watch the slides, these memes, you are going to see more information that we need to know. But as I wind up and over to you, Precious, as you conclude, and as we look at the screen shot right there, give us your conclusion, Precious, because we are going to have you again on this very show next weekend, if you permit, and we continue from where I would have stopped. But our emphasis next weekend, we want to know about what didn't we study in our schools. We want to know, especially, what are we missing? What was Kemet before the coming of the colonizer? What was being done in Africa before that we don't learn from these schools? How come that the first university was in Africa that taught all these histories, all these sciences was in Africa? And which university was that? What was being taught in that university? Where is the idea of having a building coming from? So, Precious, our next discussion should dig out what we missed from our school. When you look at the Sphinx, when you look at the pyramids, what does it tell about us about Africa and the contribution of Black people to civilization? How come that the pyramids have been there for over 5,000 years?
Because the British couldn't steal them and put them on ships to take them back to the UK.
And
that's why they're still there.
Anyone go tamper with their noses? All of us know, Lynda and Precious, that the nose of one of the was removed because somewhere.
Are they all? They've blown all the noses off. All the noses have come off.
Someone is not comfortable to tell the world that Ramesses was a black man. That actually people built the pyramids were black people. And all this engineering and all this physics, all this chemistry was being done in Kemetic Africa. So we need to understand this history so that we can be able to understand where are we coming from and where did we get lost from and how do we go back on the lane. Back to Precious, you may explain a bit of the memes going on, and then we conclude. Back to Precious.
Okay. I think and the government role in education. I want to use this medium to call on African leaders to invest in our education. Our generation and the one that will come will not be able to learn. We need to know about our history, and the only way we can know about make the education something that will profit the people by making sure that more investment is done in it, whereby our done about the untold history of Africans, in order for our
Are we losing you, Precious? Lynda, you can come in and weigh in as we get network of Precious coming back on board. Lynda?
Yes, Kato, I think we need to try and find a solution collectively as an African continent, how we can start trying to resolve this problem. Whether it's putting, I think, campaigns of awareness together, petitions, and possibly leaders from each of our countries. I'm talking about not our corrupt leaders. I'm talking about people like you and I can go to the AU and petition them and start, because every person you speak to who knows the truth is very upset with our education system in every single country. There are even teachers that are being forced to teach systems and things that they don't agree with. So we need to actually find a way of how are we going to start resolving this. We mustn't think that it's impossible for us to resolve. We've got to try and find a way as everyday people to unite together from different countries. And this is why I am so passionate about the fact that we need to start not looking at each other as foreigners, but as neighbors and as family. We've all got the same problem in each country. We've got to stand together on issues like this and stand unified as an African continent. Remember too that there are many people overseas that are also aware of the fact that they've been taught fake versions of their own history. And if we look at what we taught about what happened to like the native Indians and the Aborigines in Australia, it's very much the same thing by the same people. So we need to actually start working collectively as a continent, and maybe we can then help change education around the world and work together with other countries one day, because we are fully capable of doing these things as African people. We are so great and we have so much knowledge and intelligence that we refuse all the time to accept. Maybe this would be the wonderful way that we as African people can prove who we are by changing our education system back to what it should be and learning our own history. What's to say that it can't start with us, that it can't start on the show with a few of us and the people that we are connecting with in overseas countries who have the same issues? Let's try and start making changes. And not be fobbed off by our governments that tell us we have to wait until such and such a time to put these things forward. Let us start working together. Uganda with the humanist schools, Nigeria with the people like Precious Ebenezer, and me who's just got a big mouth and can shout and talk off to all. As a white person, like I say, white skin is seen as being a privilege, then let me grab that with both hands and use it for my black brothers and sisters, because unfortunately my voice, because of the color of my skin, gets to be heard in places that your voices are not, even though you have much more knowledge and experience of things I speak about. I'm the one that gets to shout it out. That's why I'm Mama Kaleli, because sadly, my voice is heard more in places than yours are. So let's work together collectively and with our friends overseas. And let's just look at that, you see. And it's all to do with the closer to the equator. My Ugandan friends who are in exile in South Africa have changed their skin tone. They are a much lighter color now than they were when they arrived, because you're so close to the equator there. So Kato, you're going to be looking like me soon.
Yeah, I'm interested when you're talking, because it gives me a lot of hope. And I always say, if you had 100 Lyndas in Africa and 100 Ebenezers in Africa, would have been a far much better people, a better continent. As we wind up, we can see the memes have been running on. I will request Ebenezer in the next discussion, preferably next weekend. When you look at the Ankh, for example, a symbol of life, if I could explain the Ankh, is 3,000 years BCE, that symbol there. And it shows life from female to male and how they unite to give us life. So, and this is Kemetic history, for example. So, in the next discussion, Precious, I'm going to request you to put many of these memes in a presentation, which we can roll, and then you can talk about the information packaged in the memes in the next presentation, preferably Saturday, if you can make it. And then after that, because the photos, the memes will tell us more about our history. When I start talking about the Ankh there, I can explain the history of Black people and how they respected matriarchy, for example. I can just use that Ankh to teach people about how Black people respected women using that Ankh. That how, for example, in Egypt, someone to rule over the people of Kemet, not even Egypt as we know it today, had to have a well-known female mother's lineage known. That in ancient Kemet, they never cared about your father, but about your mother's lineage. There's no way you could come and become a pharaoh without establishing your mother's lineage, because they thought that women gave a better chance of knowing one's roots than men. So when you look at that Ankh, which I can explain in the next discussion, the Ankh explains the femininity and masculinity of human beings. That when you have the upper part and the lower part, the female and the male fused together, you get a human being. You get a human being. The Ankh is a symbol of life. But which life comes from having a male and a female coming together. And when you look at the history, when you look at the photos of pharaohs of those years, you are going to see the Ankh as a symbol on their attires. Lynda, you have seen that. So, Precious, as we wind up, as a request, we are going to have another discussion, but this time we look more on our history, Kemetic history, organized in a pictorial. And then we will be explaining briefly on each of these pictorial so that people can be able to follow. When people talk about the pyramid, they need to see them. When you talk about pharaohs, they need to see them. When you talk about the tampered pharaoh statues, they need to see them. And I know I put them down in your research. So may we have this kind of education in our next presentation, well organized, running on the screen, and then you behind as a teacher explaining these kind of things. Lynda, as I wind up, I want to invite Precious to give us a conclusion for tonight.
Yes.
And again, Lynda will be able to summarize, and we call it a night. Thank you very much, Precious, for coming on board. And please give us your conclusion on this tonight. Precious, back to you. Precious,
I
can
think
you
we've
hear me?
lost his sound there.
Lynda, as we wait for Precious to get back, give us your take as we conclude. We are concluding, Lynda.
Yes, let's conclude. Thank you. Well, to thank Precious very much. I see he's gone off again there completely now, for joining us tonight. And it's going to be wonderful for us to be able to continue with our discussion next week. And any people who've been watching, to please send us questions and things during the week. We would also, I want to just thank people across Africa who are watching. I know a lot of you watch after the show. We will put a permanent link up for the show, which Precious will also have. I want to say a special thank you to the people who do support us in the work that we do. Paul Evans in the UK, Galen Middleton in New Zealand, and Todd, who I've yet to meet online, who's doing a wonderful work in America promoting the sale of Precious's book as well. He's the person who you can order the book through now. They're in the process of getting a reprint done and having it online as well. We'll have all the details for that on our site, Call to Activism Africa, on the Facebook page. Please also look Precious, Ebenezer Precious, Hero Precious Ebenezer up on Facebook for his page to read up on a lot of what we've spoken about tonight. And a special shout out as well to Dean from Atheist Republic South Africa actually, who is going to be putting the link out to all the atheist groups across Africa, and hopefully to also reach Atheist Republic in the USA as well. Also, we thank you. We've had such a lot of interest. For those of you who are really interested and passionate about this, to please get a copy of Precious's book. It is phenomenal, and it is something that you know that by supporting local authors and African authors that are really truth seekers. So many of us are being imprisoned, tortured, disappearing before speaking the truth in Africa. We have to really look after and protect those of us who are out there publicly taking the risk to get the word out to the rest of the world, and to promote the book amongst your own groups. More than anything, for us, it's getting the word out. It's getting the message out there to as many people as we can. So I thank you, and I just think, for me, to all my Black friends across Africa and around the world, to start standing up proud and realizing who you are and what your heritage is. You have got to stop thinking that you're not as good, not as worthy, not as clever. You are all those things and more. And I am who I am today because of the love and the wealth of knowledge and just being raised around Black African people. I owe who I am today to those people, which is why I stand so much, and I will continue fighting, as I have my whole life, for Black people to have a voice and to say, hey guys, wake up and see what an amazing race
You
of
were
Black people
Black,
are.
white, African.
Yeah, well, my friends tell me I'm a Black woman in a white skin, so who knows?
You were Black
Thanks,
woman
my
trapped
friend.
in a white skin.
I'm trapped. I tell you, there have been times when I was younger where I actually had bleeding marks on my skin. I was trying to take my white skin off.
Your white skin is beautiful, and we love your contribution. You are just an African in Africa who appreciate your Africanness, because all of us are Africans anyway. Lynda, I want to thank you so much for the lovely show we have had today. It was very, very, very educative to me.
Very.
It was a very heartwarming. And I was happy to see my friends coming on board: Amber, Darwin Anderson,
Yes,
Jerry
thank you so much.
Middleton, Stella Namatovu, William Smith, David Oloston, and all those who were able
Levi from Liberia, yeah.
to send in messages. Thank you so much. Maybe you haven't read all of them, but we have been following everyone's comments. We have been following all your feedback. We shall try our level best to continue sharing this segment. Please share it widely. We want to thank our friend, our comrade, Paul Ewans, who is very supportive to all our initiatives. We want to thank our team, Dennis in Uganda, Dennis Bongoli, behind administration, behind the powering of this program. We want to thank Brian Kabeko from Nairobi, Kenya, who is also doing a very instrumental work. Of course, Logan, who is also doing an exam, but part of this team and very supportive, and everyone that is doing whatever they can to see the work you see on the screen. I want to thank you so much, Lynda, because it's because of you that we are running stronger and stronger. I've been behind the memes. I want to thank you for your input. Of course, I want to thank the guest who you looked for, Precious Ebenezer Helu, has been a great, very, very great contribution and great guest. We learned a lot from him. I want to emphasize that Helu is an author. His book, I wish we could put the title of the book on the screen. Lynda, if you know the title, I've seen it, but it has slipped my mind.
Yes.
You could tell us the title of the book, and we tell the people where we can get this book. We want you to support writers who have written history about Africa, who have written proper African history. Lynda, we have been on a mission, me and you, for several months now, that we are going to rewrite our own history.
Yes.
We want to rewrite our own history. We're not going to allow someone who wants to pass an agenda to write our own history. We want to write history from an Afrocentric viewpoint and to correct the mistakes that have been put up there, to correct the misinformation that has been put out there. This is our emphasis more on this program because we want to put things right. We want people to know who they are, where they come from, and what went wrong. What went wrong? When we talk about religion and the impact of religion, the way people have been brainwashed, the way we are fighting each other over gods we don't know how they were created, dividing ourselves alongside races, tribes, and ethnicity, which doesn't put us forward. This is detrimental to people in Africa. Lynda, I appreciate your input. I really, really appreciate it. And I wish we continue with this kind of drive. We have had a break, which was meant to re-energize us.
We needed that, yes.
We needed a break, and we are back, firing on all cylinders, and I'm going to continue giving you our best. Lynda, you are parting shots, and we shall be out. We shall be having Ebenezer next weekend. Bye-bye to everyone. Lynda, back to you.
Thanks, Kato. Yes, and I think this is fantastic because it can try us a good direction for the show to take next year as well. This is very, very important. I'm sure you also get asked often by people, how can we solve our problems? How can we solve our issues in Africa? And it's like we always say, we have to start by educating our children and with the next generation, because they are the ones that are going to lead this continent forward one day. And I also want to stress that it was all the things I say in that we can't put the blame on the whole of Europe or the whole of the UK. We have some amazing people that are helping us from around the world. And I thank them all too for the work that they're doing to help us in Africa. And I think it just goes towards what we want one day is not only to have a united Africa, but to have a united world, which is a pipe dream, but I do believe that it could happen, maybe in several hundred years' time, who knows. But we are the start of that, and it's very important, Kato, for us as writers and people with public platforms to speak the truth, because I'm so afraid that it's going to die with our generation. When I see how many people are now so caught up with social media and everything that's been foisted on them by what they think they should do and how they should act. I mean, I joke that my black male friends, they'd rather buy the latest. You know, I ask my friends what the weather is, they've got to check the weather app. We are losing so much of who we are as African people. And if we can't try and put a halt on that and bring it back, it's going to be lost. We can still speak the truth of what we know. We were raised as children during the colonial era, and we have the truth of our parents and our grandparents. But once our generation is gone, it's lost forever. Just like our history has been lost. We've got to revive that. It's up to us. It's our moral obligation to all of us out there who write and are people that have public platforms. That is our immortality. That is our never-ending, everlasting life as people. It's a legacy that we leave behind us to make this world a better place, slightly better place for the people that follow behind us and to make it a bit easier for them. And I think that's something that we're all working on. So thank you so much for watching tonight and for those who watch after the show. And we'll be back next time, same time next week, with Precious Ebenezer to give us some more knowledge. And I could listen to him all day. I really could. He's got so much knowledge, and I would love to just spend a whole week just talking to him about all my things that I need to know. So it's great to have him on the show. Thanks, Kato.
Thank you so much, and bye-bye. See you next Saturday.
Bye.
Bye-bye.